Episode 14 of Riders Block. We're doing it. It's happening. We got Stuchiu back in the house. First repeat guest. Stuchiu, are you happy? I mean, everyone's ecstatic with the state of the major and the state of the scene. People aren't being completely annoying by the concept of boringness. I don't know. Pretty happy times for everyone involved, right?
Yeah, I mean, unlimited eggs for everybody.
Unlimited eggs, exactly. You know, there's that association with eggs and the female reproductive system, and you know, maybe that combines a little bit when you talk about people who complain about the entertainment level of the games in such a annoying and repetitive way. But moving on to the actual meat of the topic, not the eggs, but the meat. We are going to be talking about the major. There's a lot to cover, a lot of things going on. There's obviously the big storyline of Astralis and NaVi and the big teams, but there's also a lot of teams that like overperformed over this course of the tournament that were interesting storylines that, you know, in sort of the wake of the major we might have forgotten because it was a solid week or so ago, or just 4 or 5 days ago. Like Complexity, Tyloo, so I thought we'd start there. Sam, even in the pre-show, you couldn't even help it before we got to air. You were going off about how great teams like Rogue and Complexity were. Tell me why I can't just dismiss Complexity out of hand, as I will try to do in the upcoming few minutes.
Well, I actually think Complexity was a pretty good team. So just in background, I came into watching their VODs as a Complexity hater because, as you know, I suck Danish dick, and because of the drama that happened in Optic with Shazam and Stan, I fucking hate those people now, and they are my enemies. But,
well, that's a reasonable opinion, man.
No. But I watched the VODs, and I thought that they looked pretty good. I thought that Stanislaw had maybe a little bit of a limited play style, but I think that he did a really good job of managing pace. I think that they had some really good team play on sites, on CT side. They were very willing to pull back and then enter back in. So sort of respond to pressure passively and then aggressively, catching a lot of teams off guard. I thought that was excellent. And so I thought that they were good for a lot of the wins that they had. So like I would bet for them if they played big again. I thought that was a perfectly reasonable result. So I don't think that they crazily overperformed. I just think that because of the teams that they played, you know, they kind of got a bit lucky with the results. If you look at
just a tad bit lucky, just the slightest bit of luck with Big in round 3 of the Swiss.
Right. Well, no, obviously with Big, that's very lucky. And I got really tilted about that too. But if you look at the teams they played against, like, did they overperform against the teams they played against? I don't think so. Did they overperform in terms of the top 8? Then definitely, yeah. So I think that they're a pretty good team. I mean, I think that Ye and Def are very good impact fraggers. I thought that Stan was pretty good. I thought the only one that I have qualms about is Shazam. I have questions about Shazam because of how bad he was in the quarterfinals. But otherwise, I think that they're a pretty solid team, and I would expect them to be like top 15 over the next, you know, which is pretty good. That's not unreasonable, is it?
Sam, not Sam. Stuchiu, Max, tell me how unreasonable Sam is being down here in the bottom left-hand corner. Do you think Complexity is a good team at all? Do you think they completely lucked out? Do you want to join the dark side over here in the top left-hand corner? Maybe Stuchiu, do you have any thoughts on Complexity? Do you watch them at all?
Yeah, I did some. Let's see. Where do you start? Well, in Challenger stage, they only played Inferno.
Right.
Like, let's get that out there.
Well, 5 of their 8 games were Inferno.
Then they kept getting Inferno.
Yeah.
And I was very confused. Like, I was like, why is Fnatic giving them Inferno? And then they got Inferno. Then I forget who else gave them Inferno, but a bunch of people kept giving these guys Inferno. For reasons I couldn't fathom. Like, the only team that should have been allowed to was Astralis, obviously, because they're fucking Astralis. But everybody else, actually, I guess you can. No, basically, I don't understand why Big gave them Inferno either. Because, like, I saw a bunch of Space Soldiers. in the challenger stage.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh,
Because they played big twice.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you're just talking about in general, like, yeah, it's good within this one very specific event, but should I believe in them from going forward? I'm not so sure. I will say I think Stanislaus' style of tactics did bleed into this team, and you can clearly see it. Like I said, change of pace, pretty good setups, some team play, but basically the only like progression forward is going to be based off of like their young players. So I'm thinking of Ye and Android, and I don't necessarily know if they'll grow up to be that type of player or not.
Yeah,
so
I think Android's 24 too. So
yeah, like pretty unlikely in Android's case. Like
Max,
maybe you can go with Ye.
Max, last chance to join me and just shit on this.
Let me say this. It's very, very rare that I wake up in the morning, stretch out, look over on my phone, check my Twitter DMs, and see that a pro player has messaged me out of the blue.
Really?
And and hey, guess what? My heartbeat went up about 20 beats because it's never like I really liked your content type thing. And Ye messaged me because on counterpoints, I was sort of predicting that they would get 2-0'd by MIBR, and that I think MIBR would be able to punish any mistakes.
Completely unreasonable opinion.
Yeah, and then, but he was so lovely. He was like, "Oh, I just wanted you to like link me to any of the mistakes you saw in our game, so we could improve and get better." I'm like, "Of course, I get, bro. I'll do that for you, yeah." Just like, of course, man.
Oh, man.
And
dude, my reply would have been so harsh. It would be like, "Oh,
dude, you're full of angst, fucking today, Scott. I'm loving it."
Dude, I woke up at fucking 5 a.m. today. I'm so tired. But yeah, I would just reply to him like, "Oh, so now I'm on your shit team too? Don't drag me down there." No.
In terms of their game, though, I think, yeah, I totally agree. I think top 15's a pretty expected turn for them. I think Shazam definitely underperformed in the quarterfinals against MIBR. And I think, and this is going to sound, I should have set up that like thing about the DM after I gave my opinion of complexity.
Yeah, now your opinion is completely worthless to me.
Just completely worthless. But I didn't think Ye played good on train against MIBR. Yeah, and I think the promise of those two players in Android and Ye is strong. I thought Stanislaw individually overperformed a lot throughout this major. Like, I think if you look at a lot of the impact rounds he had, I do not associate that level of performance with Stanislaw. But yeah,
I actually kind of do, but in a weird way. I think he gets in those positions a lot, but he just can't shoot people.
Yeah, well, you got to separate Stanislaw before and after he stopped being in game leader of Liquid, because if you remember, after he stopped being in game leader of Liquid, he was like dog shit for some reason individually. But when he's in game leader, he is pretty good, and he does like lurk.
I think it was just that
a lot. So
specific circumstance of him losing like all motivation to play the game
and confidence.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think I'd prefer to have complexity as a top 15 team with that structure and with Stanislaw as an IGL and just a shitty Shazam rather than like just some super like hot star to carry them. So I'm optimistic about complexity moving forward, I think.
All right, let me lay down the law since you guys are refusing to. Flattery just works so well on Max. He's not going to say the real shit. Shazam underperformed in the quarterfinals. Top
15 team.
I mean, I don't think they're going to be a top 15 team. I think they're going to have a hard time getting to tournaments when they have Cloud9, who's still a fan favorite with all these international players. You have Rogue, who Sam also insists are good. You have
they are.
They are not. They have
they're a top 20 team. That's my version of good.
Okay.
Make a list. Okay, because I don't think they're going to be on it. Okay, I'm fucking Santa Claus tonight. Okay, anyway. Yeah, you have Liquid, Energy, Cloud9. I'm already bored at this point. But let's get to the straight shit. Shazam wasn't underperforming in that quarterfinal. He was dog shit in that semifinal. Just like straight peaking off fall and getting wrecked round after round after round. Who is their star player? Okay, yeah, okay, Depp, yeah, they look all right, right? I mean, but they're not. It doesn't seem like they're going to be leapfrogging off the page. These guys have been around for years, right? And you guys already said that Android, who sometimes looked strong. Is not a 19-year-old or a 16-year-old guy with super crazy hair. He is a 24-year-old guy who's also been around for a couple years now.
Yeah.
There's nothing I don't understand. They won first, like Stuchiu was saying. This is a tournament that was specifically designed for them. They have a small map pool, Inferno, Mirage, that comes up lots of times the best of ones. Not all tournaments are going to be best of ones. A lot of those online qualifiers are going to be best of threes. They got lucky in that they got to play their favorite map over and over and over. 5 times out of 8, they got very, very favorable matchups all the way through in the just in terms of the Swiss system. They will never repeat a result like this. They will never make a top 8 at a Premier tournament again. They're worthless to talk about.
None of those things are incompatible with what I said, though. Like,
how are they going to be a top 15 team in the world if they can't make it to a tournament? They can't do well at a tournament.
The bottom 15 is like really iffy down there.
I don't know what you're like. If you make a top 8 at a tournament consistently, you're a top 8 team. Top 16 or top 15 team just has to qualify for those tournaments. I think that they're perfectly serviceable, and actually, the way that they qualified to this LAN is by playing a shit ton of best of threes. They played a best
beating
of
an RG.
Yeah, and Rogue, like they're not just a like pushover team. In fact, before this tournament, Inferno wasn't their most played map. So like I don't see an issue. Like I think that the map they looked best on was Nuke against Big. I don't think it was any of their Inferno matches. I understand that the fact that they played Inferno makes you question how, like, would they beat Fnatic if they play them on Mirage or something? Probably not. But they don't need to beat. I'm not looking at them to beat Fnatic or NRG. I'm looking for them to beat someone like, Tyloo or Heroic or Vega or ENCE, those or G2. Those are the teams that I think they can beat. You know what I mean?
Just because I'm at the top of the screen with Scott and I felt like he had so much vitriol and passion. You're fuck complexity, dude. Yeah, dude. Get that shit out of there. I'm with you, Scott, dude. I'm here with you, man.
I mean, I'll do it I don't know, there's some sort of bet we can do. Like, no matter what size tournament, like a LAN tournament, complexity won't make the second stage, whether that's top 8 or top 4 or top whatever, top 6 or something. In the next till the end of the year, till 2019, will not happen.
But if you go to DreamHack Tours, I think they can win. So
I haven't looked at that tournament yet.
No, but I'm just saying, a tier 2 LAN, they can win, and that's a top 15 team. Those are relevant teams. They're not the best teams. Maybe they're not relevant for you, but there's a lot of good teams that are below. You
think
they
could take Hellraisers in the best of 3? I know that's your one true love. See, I'm pitting the worst. See, now I'm pitting all your worst instincts.
I think they would shit on Optic.
No, Hellraisers.
No. But I also think they could beat them, or I think that they could, fight pound for pound with Tyloo. Like, they have a really deep firepower core, and I don't like Shazam like as a player, but I do think that he plays well against those kinds of teams. So it's totally fine.
That's he's sort of like that, got that quality about him where he can sort of like, if he does get rolling, he can shit on people who are sort of lower skill level, but he does look he gets exploited especially hard by the better oppers. I can see that. All right, but let's talk about so should we go to Tyloo? Max, you wrote a few articles about Tyloo recently. I think, Stuchiu, have you been interested in Tyloo? I think you mentioned them earlier.
Yeah, they're just funny team to watch. Like
funny
team
to
watch.
I was just like the lines in my forehead were like creased like a motherfucker earlier when I was watching them. I don't know if they were enjoyable. I was just trying to get it. I wasn't watching them live. It's like, what? Why would they push that? Like, that doesn't make any. Why are they saving? Like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. So, make sense of this for me, Max. I read your article, but like, how would you describe Tyloo as a team? It seems like they have they seem to have some talent, but they play in a very different way. You see them they seem to be very risk oriented in their style of play. How would you paint the picture?
I think to understand Tyloo, you have to appreciate that both Ben 10 and Xcurit have a good understanding of how to play Counter-Strike and how to conceptualize like themselves as a team. And I think as the secondary caller and caller of Tyloo, Execute, and Ben 10 give at least some semblance of reasoning to what's going on. And then let me put it this way. I think if they had an all Indonesian team and somebody Execute and Bentet were the leaders, that would be a good, fundamentally sound team. That would make a lot of sense. But it's the fact that they have 3 Chinese players who all play like 3 Chinese players that just makes it so unreasonable to watch. And I think if you're forced to try and win games and just use what you have, if you're Bentet and Execute, you've just got to use the likes of somebody and Mo and DD in ways that sort of go with the grain rather than against it. And if you go with the grain with those 3 Chinese players, you get the shit show that is Tyloo right now, which is just, you know, pushing through smokes, a lot of very weird pacings of strategies, a lot of very unorthodox methods of closing rounds as well. I don't think there is any distinct rhyme and reason to Tyloo's game, because Tyloo themselves probably don't know what they're doing a lot of the time, would be my best guess. So yeah, I think you can talk about Tyloo from a lot of different angles, but I would probably take the approach of looking at it from Bentet and Execute up.
So do you sort of agree with that characterization, or how would you paint it?
Yeah, if you assume, for instance, Bentet and Execute know what they're doing and understand the fact that they're playing with 3 Chinese players who can't actually communicate with them, it makes complete sense, because basically, as far as I can see, they understand where to put them at the beginning of the round, and then they just let them go fucking wild. They let everybody go wild because they all understand they can't play off of each other. So everybody literally thinks in their mind, how can I 1v5 this round? That's literally what they think. It doesn't matter what situation they're in. If it's 5v4, 5v3, 5v2, 5v1, they're all thinking in their mind, how do I win this round by myself? Because that's literally the win condition for all 5 players, and they all understand that on some weird ass level. Like that's why you see like somebody's like super hyped up this tournament, is because like he thrives in this. I don't know necessarily why. Like I think he might be the craziest of like the 5 players. Maybe that's why. Yeah. But basically, this team is great in the sense that they literally already hit their like potential ceiling. Like this is as good as this 5 combinations ever going to get, unless like Execute and Bentet learn Chinese within the next couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, can we just really quickly appreciate the fact that even with this approach, Tyloo can still make the legend stage of the major, and they can be a legit team. Like, that's why CSGO is just the best fucking game. Like, you can literally just have players that don't speak the same language and take this completely random, let's, like, build this plane as it flies sort of approach, and they can make a splash on an international stage. Dude, I eat this shit up so much. Tyloo is definitely my, like, favorite storyline to watch blow up.
Like, I'll put it this way. They have the highest potential to upset somebody. They also have the highest potential to get upset. That's Tyloo.
Yeah. You guys are way more optimistic or, you know, loving of Tyloo than I am. I mean, I haven't watched them that much this major because they didn't do much at this major, but I don't know. The one positive thing I will say about Tyloo is that they have more balls than the voyeur that was caught in my residence masturbating in the bathroom. Okay, they have a lot. They have a lot of testicular fortitude.
It's unreasonable.
I can send you the sketch. If you find him, call me. We'll tell the RCMP. But anyway, we are looking for him. Anyway, so
all right,
this is not a CSGO podcast anymore. Yeah.
Here's what I don't like about Tyloo is that they lose like way too much. So I like if a team's peaked and they go pound for pound with people and they win half their games and lose half their games, you know, that's cool. Like Cowboy Cerrone, you know, whatever. But
for sure.
At the same time, they do lose a lot to teams that are way worse than they are in a way that I feel is disproportionate. Like they, you know, in the Asian Minor, they lost to Renegades, didn't they? And they, you know, they lost to Optic too, in that like a really terrible match. Yeah. And stuff like that. So like, I don't know. Like to me, when you're like losing to teams that are that bad, and I do think that Renegades and Optic in the context of when they played them were really bad. I have a hard time feeling excited because whenever they win, it's kind of meaningless because I know that it says nothing about how good they are or how good they'll perform later. I'm just like, oh yeah, that's Tyloo. They'll probably lose next time, almost certainly. So
it's not about
me,
winning or losing. It's about sending a message with this team. That's literally what they're about.
Sure.
They're the glass cannon equivalent of like an entire roster. Just
yeah.
It's fun.
I mean, actually every player has some quality that I like in them, but I mean, just get Bentet and X-Accurate out of there. I mean, why? What are they doing in that roster? Why
to get somebody out?
They're
of
getting
there,
money.
No, but do they speak English? Or because they comment English, right? Why don't they go to like Mouse Sports or something, like or something like that? Red Reserve or team.
Renegades, Cloud9, bunch of teams.
No one goes to Renegades that I like. Okay, no one goes there that I like. That team is fucked. But
that team
is Azkaban.
Yeah.
But like, I guess the point is that it's pretty depressing to me to see players that are much better than the team and they're playing in this team. So even though they're playing in a way that's exciting, it's also limiting because I know that Bentet could be way better than he's playing right now if he was just in a roster that was easier to manage and easier to lead, or if he wasn't in-game leader at all and he could actually
for sure.
So to me, I see it a little differently, but I think we agree like Tyloo's just a kind of a random team. Dionysian, as I like to say,
because it's easy to forget how good Bentet was at one point as a superstar. Because if you look at the numbers right now,
he's basically playing lifesaver on this team. It's like, oh shit, there's like 1 billion holes on this shit. Let me go save something.
Yeah, he could be a top 10 player in the world. So it's depressing to me to see that.
Okay,
kind of like matches.
Okay, in concession to the earlier segment with complexity, I think the reason why I'm so down on them is because I'm really down on MIBR, and then so complexity lost to MIBR. Yeah, it's all just falling downhill in terms of my hierarchy of hatred. But so we saw MIBR make top 4, one of the softest top 4s I've ever seen. The major, completely disgusting top 4. But they did. It's a pretty good result on paper. What do you guys think about MIBR? I'm gonna save. I'm not gonna load the question. I'll ease you guys into it. I won't make Sam defensive. I'll just go for it. What do you think? Tell me about your boy Stu. Tell me about how Launders is on point with all of his fanfare. Go for it, man. Doors open.
I thought Stu was pretty bad. I thought.
Sorry, real quick. This is the equivalent of like Scott literally holding like a baseball bat behind his back, and he's like opening. Goes like, come on. Like it's all good, dude. It's all good.
I thought, I mean, so I watched both the NaVi game and the complexity game, but I didn't catch much of MIBR in the group stage, so I can't.
The only game that'll tell you anything is the NIP games.
Right. I watched the NIP games live.
Did you see the complexity MIBR one? No. Was that? Was it complexity MIBR? Or no, it was Tyloo MIBR actually.
Tyloo totally won. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they made this ridiculous comeback. That was just.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
That
was on the first day of the major, right?
Yeah, it was first day.
Yeah. So I think Here's one thing about MIBR that I really like is that Fallen is playing really, really,
it's really interesting.
Which is not just a narrative. Like he's legitimately playing like almost peak Fallen. He's been super impressive. Otherwise, I thought that Tarek and Stewie played pretty bad in their match against NaVi. I thought that they were like super disappointing. Like in their overpass match, I thought that MIBR could have been way more competitive in the first half if Tarek had been a little better and if Stewie had hit some shots, but Tarek made some like decision making mistakes as well. To me, it's strange. Like I feel like they're fine and they're totally fine, but I don't even know if they're making tactical errors. Maybe someone else thinks that they are. I just feel like they're not, like some of their players aren't comfortable in what they're doing. So Fur he's been better than the other two, or at least I think he's been better in the matches that I've watched, but he still hasn't been that sick. Tarek hasn't been that sick, even though his stats are good for some reason. And Stewie's been fine, but at least in that series, he individually underperformed. And so it feels like it's a team that's skill stacked, and they are playing like they're skill stacked. And I thought that they against complexity, I thought that they played perfectly well. I mean, they disrespected complexity, but they only disrespected complexity once they started stomping them. They played disciplined until they realized, oh, they're choking. Okay, let's murder their asses. And they did murder their asses, and they did a good job. Against NaVi, I thought that they struggled much more, and that they were never able to actualize the potential of, you know, their individual players, which makes me question why they have those players. If those players can't perform in, you know, the same way that someone like Olaf Meister is, even in a limited position in FaZe, or was when he was in a limited position on FaZe, like, what's the benefit of having a player who's supposed to be a star that you're putting in a tougher role? If he's not going to play like a star, why not have Taco? You know what I mean? So I feel a little conflicted, but I think they're fine. Like, it depends on how you judge them. Like, I know that Thorn likes to judge them as a team that should be, you know, top 2 in the world.
Yeah, I mean, look at their roster, dude. They got some hitters on that team.
I mean,
and
I guess, but
they got like one of the 3 prodigies. They got Fallen, considered the greatest in-game leader and one of the best hoppers. Fur literally like killed everything last year. Stewie and Tarek
won a major.
Basically won a fucking major off of their aggressive
probably the most like highly regarded 2 players in North America.
I don't think that says that much about how good a team should be. I look at that core and I think, oh, that team should be really good. But I look at the other 2 and I question that team. I don't think it's a given that because they have a lot of skill.
Okay, I'll put it this way: like, this team was, ignoring what you look at the team, the goal of this team is to win #1, right?
Yeah. So if you're judging them by that standard, then they're doing meh. You know, they're doing meh. They're doing okay. Like, they're pretty good, but they're not succeeding to an extreme extent. But at the same time, I think that it's extremely difficult to make that roster work. Like, that's part of the reason that I like Karrigan. I don't take it for granted that a team that looks like that has that kind of composition, is going to succeed. But I think that since they got Yanko, they've taken a step in the right direction, because the fact that Fallen is fragging and the fact that coldzera is still pretty good gives them a foundation to build off of that I don't think they had before. But I don't think that they're going to be a top 3 team in the world. How about that?
Hey, Max, there's sort of the storyline going on with Yanko joining the team, and, you know, MIBR are looking better, they're improving, it's going to happen. Oh, they lose to a good team. Oh, they lose to a good team again. But, like, I think my opinion is they have all the pieces on paper, look like they're going to be great, and then, you know, it just doesn't happen. But it's just like this weird thing. It's like, why doesn't this work? And I was thinking about that MIBR versus Tyloo game, and they really faltered on their T sides, and it looked like that seemed like to be an issue for this tournament with them. Did you notice that? Did you pick up on that, or something different?
Well, yeah, it's really interesting I can't remember which interview it was, but I think MIBR was saying how it's their CT sides that they feel like they struggle on. But then when you look at their CT sides, that's the thing that I think that I'm the most impressed by in terms of the setups. When they're on the front foot, they have a very, very clearly defined way of playing certain sites. I really like the fact that they have like Stewie 2K and Fur is it on one side, and then coldzera and Taco on another, and they sort of split them both up.
You mean coldzera and Tarek?
Yeah.
So you said Taco.
Oh, sorry. I'm wigging out.
No, I think it's Fallen and Stewie that are on B site. No.
Yeah, they play like 2-1-2. That's usually how it works, but sometimes they switch it.
Yeah, because in my head I always have Cold and Tarek together, and then Stewie 2K and Fur together. Yeah. But could be wrong. And yeah, in my head, like, their CT sides look really good, and then it's definitely their T sides. I think they can sometimes forget the fact that they have potentially like 3 top 5 riflers in the world on their team, and they just can adhere so much to their own structure and to their own like sort of textbook approach that they completely lack that killer instinct, that looseness and that explosiveness that defined the Brazilian core at their peak. And it's a very positive sign that I think Fallen's coming back, but then you wonder, like, yeah, I don't know. I think MIBR are in a really weird point where if they continue on this trajectory for 2 months, we can disregard them, but we haven't given them enough time with Yanko and with Fallen performing at this level to completely, like, I don't know. I'm very uncertain how I feel about MIBR because this could just be the staging grounds because they are on an upwards trajectory in my head following the major and following the addition of Yanko. So this could be the staging grounds of when they gain the momentum heading into the back end of the year in which they become like a consistent top 3, top 2 team in the world. Or this could just be the peak of a flat roster that's been overhyped and just had too much money put into it. So I don't know. I think in terms of in-game specifics, Fur had a good overpass game against NaVi. I think Stuchiu definitely underperformed, and I think Stuchiu, given how when Bolts was in the roster, I definitely think even though he was completely apart from the team and wasn't playing like he did in Cloud9, I think given the context of him joining MIBR with Bolts, he was admirable with how much he was able to put up. And then that to me is gone with Tarek joining, which I think is really interesting. I haven't seen the same level of impact on T-side that I've wanted from Tarek and Fur. And that's masked a bit by what Fallen's done. So yeah, MIBR is a really confusing team that seems to be in flux right now and seems to be at like the tipping point in their narrative together.
I think it's just bizarre to me that they're, you have Fallen seeming like there's this narrative on the desk or in the cast. I don't know how true this is or not, where it was said that Yanko's big mission was to get Fallen back in play, and you see just like the way he moves, like the aggressiveness, the way his risk taking has increased so much. It's like, wow, this guy's really been activated again. It's really improved his game. At the same time, you think about that roster now. You have Tarek, Stuchiu, Fur, 3 playmakers, right? And then yet it's Fallen is the guy that you emphasize, someone who's been struggling more recently, maybe doesn't have a high skill ceiling as some of these players. I mean, especially Fur, right? And it seems
like Fallen's a better player than those 3 players.
I think Fallen's a better player than Fur.
Yes, he is better than Fur. I like at the peak Fallen is better than peak Fur. I think just because I think he has more impact. But that's nothing to do with Fur. Like that's just, I think that Fallen is just better in terms of being able to use the AWP at any point in a round. That's just something that like if Fur was a really good clutcher, for example, then I'd be like, yeah, but Fur's not. I don't think that Fur's that sick of a clutcher. So I mean, like we're splitting hairs, but I think that like it's really like Fallen in terms of opening aggression. Fallen's definitely the one you want to focus. But I want to say that I'm not sure how much there's a lack of coherence there, because like Fur isn't necessarily someone who goes aggressive in the first 20 seconds of a round. You're talking about more mid-round, and Stewie 2K2, you're talking about like mid-round decisions that have aggressive mid-round decisions that have a significant impact.
And on T side rather than D?
On T side. Okay. And I think that's where you're seeing a weird situation where they're not. It seems like they're not willing to pull the trigger very often, which might be what you're picking up on, Max.
Yeah,
it feels like
they're very slow rounds a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I feel that's why I think that was impressed when they started playing way more aggressively against Complexity.
I made a video about that where like literally Complexity and the Complexity did everything right in the round in terms of how they approach the map control, the macro, literally perfect Counter-Strike being played by Complexity. And then they read exactly what MIBR are going to do in terms of an inner hit on train, stack the rotates, getting ready for an inner hit. Then Stewie 2K runs through a molly and gets a quad entry and wins the round. Just like the most disrespectful shit I've ever seen. Fallen like 180 quick scopes, yay, holding this sick angle. And yeah, I totally agree with you. Against Complexity, they turned up the pace. And that is the MIBR that like makes me a bit optimistic because they can do it.
But the thing is, even then, it took a while to get there. Sure. You know what I mean? Like so I just feel like the team lacks the swagger that they had before, because they haven't been that sick for many months now. And so I think that if you see them, okay, here's a prediction: if they have like a conditional claim, if they make a final or win a tournament or beat a really good team in a best of 3, they will continue to beat those teams in a best of 3.
I can get around that.
But if they don't, if they keep playing like they are now, or they beat worse teams but they lose to the best teams, I don't think that they're going to. Because I think that they need swagger, and I think that people like Tarek, people like Fur, and people like Stewie need more swagger. Because I don't think that it's a problem of space. Because the way that I can conceptualize aggression has to do with different points in the game. And I don't think that like Fallen takes up the same slot in the time of the game as those other people. So I think, I think you if they beat NaVi once, they'll beat NaVi again.
Okay, I wasn't saying that maybe Fallen took up space in that sense. I just feels like his playmaking is the turning point of the round for them a lot of the times, or it'll turn into some like a very, very slow round. Will they'll do sort of that very specific like Fallen moving back and forth map movement on the T side. But Stuchiu, did you want to get in on the Fur comment? Did you want to disagree with Max and tell him that he was wrong, that Fur is a more impactful player than
I mean, there's
Fallen?
Like I have completely different thoughts about this entire squad apparently. So I guess I'll start with this. First off, I think the record already shows this. Like they can beat the shit out of lower teams, but they haven't shown anything against the higher teams.
That's what I've always said. Yeah.
And the next point you have to look at is like I agree, Fallen is back, but at the same time he's also not back. And what I mean by that is like, yeah, he's way better again as an opper, but think about what made him so special as an opper to begin with, talking about like 2016 and even in parts of 2017, is the fact that he won a bunch of bullshit rounds in like impossible scenarios. I don't see that shit. I don't know what you guys are looking at, but I don't see that shit anymore. And
I saw him.
I see playmaking. I'm not sure if I see
I saw
clutch.
Him walk up inner on train and get an entry on Yay out of fucking.
No. I'm not talking about.
No.
I'm talking about
clutches. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
we're talking about clutches.
Yeah, but when there's 20 seconds left in the round, even if it's a 5v5, like there's still.
He won a 1v5 before. Like this is we're talking. I'm talking about that level of Fallen.
Yeah, sure, I guess, but like that seems like such a strange comment.
And the reason it's a strange comment is because I actually think this team is working as if they think they're FNX and Taco, like they think Stewie 2K and Tarek are FNX and Taco.
Well, yeah, that makes more sense to me, that they're like trying to make them role players rather than playmakers.
And that's a really weird way to go, because like even if you want, and this comes back to like the weird point about Fur and Fallen's, like, okay, let's say you do believe for whatever reason that Fallen does have a higher potential ceiling than Fur, right? But does he have a higher potential ceiling than Fur, Stewie, and Tarek combined? I don't think so. Like I feel like
I don't think this is what's going on at all.
Like, yeah, I feel like that it might not be, but
like in what way is Fallen taking up so much space that he?
It's not about space; it's about game plan. I think is the differential.
Well, that's space. Like if you have to take, if you want to make a play and it takes up 30 seconds of the round while you're trying to make a pick, you're taking space because no one else can make a play because they're all waiting for you to get a pick, right? That's what I mean by space. But I don't think I really don't think that Fallen is taking up that much space. I don't think that he's playing that differently. I just think he's making different decisions in the situations he was already in. Like there's some plays that are made, but like I don't see the argument that no one else can perform well when you have fucking like NaVi with Edward top fragging when Simple is on that team. But I mean, like, why is it that like if you can have a highly successful roster with with a deep individual core in NaVi with Simple and Electronic, but you look at Fallen and you're like, oh, but he can't. To me, that just smells of like when you talk about like with NHL teams or any other team like or any other sport like Connor McDavid or LeBron James, and you're like, oh, he just takes up too much space in the team,
Like the space I'm talking about isn't necessarily space on the map or even the game plan. It's space in the structure.
Yeah, but
like when we look at
I'm talking about too, like
when I look at
it's not like Fallen when he was bad. Like it's not like Fur was amazing then either. It's not like Stewie was amazing then either. Like has there been a notable dip in form with those players that you look at Fallen and you're like, oh yeah, that would have been Fur doing that instead, or Fur making a play instead. And you're like, oh, that's why he has, a 1.05 rating or whatever. Like, that's a strange thing for me to say. I don't look at MIBR and think like, oh, like they're forcing Fallen. They're trying really hard to make him make a play, and that's taking away from other players.
No, like I'm thinking of it differently. I'm thinking of it as in the first time I saw Fur and Phelps play together, and then they just let the two of them run rampant.
Yep.
Yeah,
like that's a completely different play style, right? To this, to what they're doing now.
No, I agree with you that they should do more of that. I'm just saying that's not necessarily like let's say it Fallen's fault or something like that. I don't think that they're overplaying Fallen. I just think that they're generally being too conservative. You see the difference? Like I think
I feel like they're kind of connected, but it's not necessarily his fault. It's just like how
it's
Fallen's fault.
I think it's about play style, right? Where they're emphasizing talent, where they're taking risk. That sort of thing. Max, do you want to get on this? Do you have an opinion? We're going back and forth.
No more.
Okay, we'll see how that works out. I think it could be interesting to see where this team goes. I think with like Stuchiu was saying way before we got into this sort of digression, it's about that dichotomy between how they look versus top teams and how they look versus lower teams that are low themselves. They're like the ultimate gatekeeper. I actually made this I made this amazing tweet the other day where I compared, like their record versus top teams in 9 games versus FaZe, Liquid, Astralis over since in the last 6 months. They've only won 1 time. They've lost 8 times. Now North, who we sort of
I hated that. Yeah, I saw that tweet. I didn't. Yeah, like that
so
at all.
North 4 times versus those teams. They've only played 4 times versus those 4 teams. But they lose against so many of the bad teams, right?
Yeah, but like North had one good tournament where they won like 3.
Well, they also beat Liquid before.
Well, I mean, it's not like MIBR didn't go to a bunch of different tournaments.
No, but I'm saying like it's a weird thing to say like North is better than MIBR.
I never sent that tweet that North is better.
No, sorry. But that's why that I didn't like that tweet for that reason, because it seemed like North are better against top teams. So they were better, but once. Like that's like the.
No, I'm saying that North has a higher upside where MIBR doesn't have that upside. They don't seem to be able to beat the top teams. And 9 tries to only beat Liquid 1 time. North, all 4 times they've had the opportunity to play a team above their level, they've won. It seems like your concept that you like to talk about ceilings. North seem to be able to exceed their apparent level, have a higher ceiling.
Yeah, but I don't like that, because if you just go off of a single tournament performance, I'm not clear that that's at their real ceiling.
No, to me, that's there's like also the additional Liquid win. There's also the additional
in Cologne. Big's performance in Cologne is not their ceiling. Their ceiling is lower than that, because there were external factors that came into that made it so they went on a run. But that's not something where you look, they can be that good. Like, sure, if all the stars align, they can be that good. But there's no reason to think that North will ever beat Astralis with this roster in a best of 3 again. I mean, if they do, that's cool. But there's no reason right now to look at them and say, oh yeah, they can do that. That's their ceiling. It looks like, they just massively overperform. You see, maybe I'm not clear on the distinction.
I'm not clear.
That seems, but to me, that's so. I think that North is another team that historically has struggled to beat top teams, and that they're a similar team to where MIBR is at right now, where they can beat teams.
I think there are more variables. Was my basic point with the tweet, right? That there are more variable team where SK is consistently able to beat the bottom teams and has a hard time beating the top teams, right? They don't seem to be. They seem to have that barrier. I don't know if it's a map pool issue or if it's a playstyle issue, like you're bringing up before, where they seem to be able to sort of be going downhill once they face complexity after a certain point where they're able to run over players.
Yeah, well, I do think but I agree with you. Like I'm just getting upset about the philosophy behind the tweet. But I do agree with you that this team is. I do agree with you that this team it does struggle. I just think that it's likely that if you get something like North at Stockholm, where they go on a run once, that they'll continue performing that well, or it's quite plausible that they continue performing that well. Well, I didn't think the same thing about North. See, because I think that if MIBR plays that well, that will be their new ceiling. But I don't think that I don't think that was North's ceiling. I think North's ceiling is much worse than winning DreamHack Stockholm in 2 best of 3s against a team that wrecked in the major.
All right.
Can I just say, if there was ever going to be a supercut of this show, Sam saying that he was upset about the philosophy behind the tweet while talking about North would be right at the fucking forefront of that supercut.
Yeah. All right.
Sam was before the show like, can we talk about North? Can we talk about North? I'm like, we can't talk about North. I don't like to discuss my deep interpersonal pains publicly. So let's not talk about it. Let's shelve North for a little bit. Okay. I guess the team to talk about next would be Liquid. I saw an article by a young Max Millet Yeah, that's right. That's how you pronounce it. Where it's like, what? Choo-choo, ride the liquid hype train. And this is not an article about Stuchiu in the bottom right-hand corner.
I would have told you to get off that train before it crashed.
Did you crash, Max, or were you satisfied with Liquid's performance of this major? Good showing? I mean, they did sort of get if they were on the opposite side of the bracket, they could have made the final, probably, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's this map called Nuke, and it's really fucking unfortunate that map exists. I think, well, I mean, like, what do you do? Liquid...
they ban Nuke. And Astralis either pick their least played map train with their first pick, or they go to the second rotation of bans, then ban it, and then they don't have to play Nuke
or they could also pick Liquid's 2 best maps and win anyway. Could also happen.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. I thought
Astralis aren't going to beat Liquid on cash. Sorry to keep interrupting.
Yeah, okay, they would not beat Liquid on cash, but beyond that,
yeah.
But they could. Like, I don't know what to say. They just could. Like, I think Liquid, just victims to this Astralis run to the major trophy. I think that Twist had a good game on Nuke against Astralis, an understatedly good game on Nuke against Astralis. But I mean,
Liquid had a good game versus Nuke.
I mean, Twist.
Oh, okay.
Specifically.
That game was not.
Yeah. It's like, that was a 16-8 victory to Astralis. I don't think it was like. No, I think.
Actually, interrupt you one more time. Sure. I'm sorry. But
sure, not so good, man.
I was going crazy watching that Liquid game. I don't know if you ever watch the games. I turn the sound off so I can listen to music while I'm watching a bunch of games in a row. The casters kept going over and over, and then the analyst says afterwards, like, this is a much closer game than the scoreline make it seem like. But I was actually going the opposite way. I'm like, the game is not close at all. This is a fucking stomp.
Yeah.
Like,
same.
Was that
because like so
else?
many. No, yeah, because so many of the rounds Liquid won were just such bullshit rounds that they just pulled out of their
basically
ass.
all 8 rounds were like super heroics. Like, I guess that's something.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in general, the way I'm characterizing a lot of the best of 3s that Astralis played is in my head just how good of a side Astralis was. Because I think it's pretty unreasonable to think that Liquid looked so good throughout this tournament, looked great against Astralis in the best of 1 and had all this momentum. And then like every team that Astralis played has had that storyline where it's like they look good, and then they play against Astralis and they like choke or they massively underperform. I think Astralis were just on another level in all those series, especially against Liquid, as they always have in series. Like we didn't see Inferno, we saw Nuke and Mirage, and we saw Liquid's T side on Mirage get exposed. I think they lacked a lot of depth in their T side ideas when they were put on the back foot and forced to deal with Astralis' CT pressure. Because, man, even though we talk about how clinical and clean and like beautiful it is to watch Astralis' CT side, they are greedy motherfuckers.
Yeah, I saw your suit video.
Yeah. Dude, if you cannot match them,
some of those plays on Mirage with Glaive and Magic's peaking ramp.
Yeah, dude. It's insane. And then like Dupree will push Palace with secondary AWP all the time. Device will always take deep apps control with the AWP if you don't stop him. They are relentless with their top mid pressure. They have that smoke from spawn to top mid. They have the molly. And like, look at the score, 13-2. Just, what was it? 12-13. 12-3. I'm mumbling my words. That's right. But yeah, I think Liquid couldn't stop that Astralis CT side, and Astralis look their best when they can get those big CT sides going, and that's just what happened. The 2-0.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this map this was realistically lost in the pick ban because Astralis is. I mean, the way they played Astralis is better on Mirage than Team Liquid, and they're obviously better on Nuke. So that's a little frustrating. But I do think that they had more to give on Mirage than what they put out. Like I think like even in the video you showed where Matches did that individual push, I think that NaV whiffed that shot.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
He should have gotten that kill, and he should have punished way more than he did playing that default. But yeah, I mean, I think that they got exposed a little bit, but they should have done better. Like especially since Nitro and Elige, but especially Elige, I thought played really well in that Mirage game and gave them a lot of space. And I'm not sure why they weren't able to capitalize on it. I thought that Liquid looked like really confident for the rest of the the rest of the major, and I feel like they got a little hesitant playing against Astralis, and part of that is Astralis conditioning them. Part of that is when Astralis plays super aggressively and disrespects you, you get scared and you play more passively because you don't know what's what. But I also feel like if they had been able to overcome that conditioning, they could have punished Astralis much more than they actually did. So it's kind of a way of saying, like, yeah, Astralis is really good, but I thought that we saw a bit of mental weakness in
or
Liquid.
crumbling on the half.
Not a choke. Like I don't think that
no, like crumbling in terms of them not winning individual duels as often as they should, maybe because of some sort of mental factor. Would you sign off on that, Stuchiu? Do you think that they sort of performed subpar versus Astralis and that made them look weaker? What do you think about them maybe versus a NaVi? Do you think they're like some people were claiming that they were the true number 2 team in the world, which quickly fell away as the storyline had to be bolstered during the finals, right? But what do you think? What do you think on this front? Do you think that are you not a big Liquid hype train guy?
I mean, I would be if Astralis didn't exist.
Just Chew?
If Astralis didn't exist, sure, I think they'd probably be like they'd have everything they need to at least contest for number 1. But Astralis exists, and Astralis have like literally every tool they have, except they also have device. Like. Yeah.
The map pools just don't line up well for Liquid. Cash is one of Astralis' favorite bands. It's not their permanent band, but it's their favorite band. And then,
they only need one ban against Liquid, and they can win on the other 6.
Like, yeah.
Right?
Well,
and then,
I think Mirage isn't like a guarantee.
It's not a guarantee, but it's a high favored. Right now, it is.
I don't know if it's about device though. Like I didn't like.
No, it's not. It's not all device. It's actually the fact that like when you look at like the way they like structurally, tactically think about CT sides and T sides, they're always like 1 or 2 steps ahead of Liquid. Like you're talking about a hesitancy, right? But basically, Astralis like lay traps upon traps, like round after round, with their building the momentum on their sides. Yeah. So like Liquid's like, oh, they did this, we'll counter that, and Astralis already have done the counter to that counter, and then they do the next counter, but they've already done the counter to that counter. Like they're just too smart, and then it helps the fact that the device is that mobile and can work in that kind of system.
Right. It's just like I know the device got MVP, but I feel like in that series, what I was noticing, and I didn't analyze the series, but I did watch it. Who I was noticing was Magisk, and on Nuke it was Zipnix.
Yeah, Magisk fucking destroyed them, man. Like
and Zipnix was really sexy, as he always is. And I feel like it's just that Astralis, as being so like worn and torn and like having so much experience, they have much more confidence than Liquid has, and so they're way more willing to make gutsy plays and take risks. And I think that's what's punishing Liquid over and over again in all these series. And part of I was pretty optimistic about Liquid coming into this, but because I thought that they looked like they were ripping heads off people, which is kind of what you want. And I thought that they seemed to have more swagger about them. Like I was very, except ironically not in this best of 3, but I thought Naf was making a lot of individual plays. He was very confident and in interviews as well. And so I thought that this, if there was any time where they would have overcome Astralis, it was this. But like Liquid have had much better series against Astralis than this. So this was legitimately a bad series.
What's weird about this series, talking about the pick and ban too, is like it's almost the exact same pick and ban as their loss to E-League. It's the exact same thing except for it's Mirage this time and it was Inferno last time. It's just like it doesn't seem like they haven't learned. Like I got really frustrated looking at the command for NaVi and Liquid, where it seemed like this weird thing. Why don't just use first pan nuke? Like why don't you just accept that you're not going to win on nuke and try to?
Because they're statistically due for a loss, Scott. It's just like you don't understand.
Listen, law of independent assortment states that luck doesn't build over time. It's always the same chance. But no. But it seems like teams just aren't willing to go outside the comfort zone and even just float the map that they don't practice. They're permaban, right? Like it's Astralis' least played map. This train pick. Historically, the 2017, late 2016, Astralis played a lot of train, but this isn't a map that Astralis' favorite at all. Okay, they're 3-0 on this map. With this roster, but they don't ever pick it, and it's always picked into them as something they'll even avoid for first ban at best of 3. It seems so bizarre. I mean, does this seem like a trend of Liquid of not willing to go outside their comfort zone?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's a trend. It's been like this forever, hasn't it? Like, has there ever been a time they took risks in the pick ban?
I mean, it just seems like a trend with the team, just in terms of like play style, where they seem fairly structured. I think they're a team that also, like we were sort of talking about before, that seems to be able to flop. It doesn't seem like they. I think on the last by the numbers, or maybe it was the last counterpoints you talked about. Sort of their like lack of killer instinct. It just seems like they're playing it very safe in terms of combat, in terms of how they approach the game. It doesn't seem like, well, first of all, that's a sort of bad matchup. They're like a junior Astralis, right? In terms of Astralis versus Liquid. And it also seems like, I mean, this is not a good look when they don't take that risk and do the exact same thing, or nearly the exact same thing they do at E-League months later when they have their chance at the major itself.
Like, there's not really much to say. The only positive I'll say is I think Elige is actually pretty good throughout both games. Like, Twist was good in the first game, but that's not it. Like, what else can you say? Like, I think everybody else like lacks something. Like, something in those big playoff matches. Like,
it is notable that Elige was good, because it's not always that Elige has been good in finals. But I think the biggest one, like, NaV was the worst player out of their three best players in this best of three. But I think that the notable loss was Twist, because Twist is like such an important part of this team in terms of X Factor, and so he does have problems in big series. So and that's probably just because of his age.
Was that ESL 1 New York 2017 when we played in that first final? He seemed to go really missing after having a sick tournament.
Yeah, that was a really bad.
This actually gets to a place I wanted to think about, because I saw Sam's Twitter yesterday after the major, and him sort of doing some weird philosophy math in a tweet thread going over the whole logic progression of is simple a choker or not. So talking about choking, I mean, you do think Twist choked in this? I mean, I
don't know if he choked. I just saw that I didn't notice him very much in that on Mirage, and I'm not convinced that there wasn't room for him to express himself. That sounds so
artistic. And,
basically a choke.
Yeah, but what was your greater thought on choking in general?
Sure. No, just one more. It's because it's not always clear to me that the individual choked, because if his plays rely on a game plan of his team and his team wants to play it safe, then Twist would be being a bad player if he disobeyed the call and made a player took a risk he wasn't supposed to do, right? And so you have to be careful. Since I think that Liquid was trying to be safe, I don't blame Twist for not playing aggressively. I think that was a team. Whoever made the call on the team was at fault.
I guess it really depends on what he thinks his own role is. Like, if he thinks he's a superstar player, sometimes you have to buck the system and like take the game in your own hands. Like, sometimes you have to do that.
Well, maybe, but anyway,
inject a little Tyloo in those veins.
Sure.
Anyway. But what was your greater theory in terms of simple and choking? It seems like you had a point. I think last major too, talking about Nico in the finals, you also brought up this point.
Yes, I don't think Nico choked, and I don't think that Nico is a choker. I don't think Nico played badly in that overpass game. So, like, I don't know. I actually talked to Yanko about this before he got mad at me for saying that MIBR was as good as Hellraisers when they qualified for the Legend stage. But
I didn't see this. I got search Twitter for this.
But I think that we have a tendency to look at someone playing bad in a key situation and saying, "Oh, well, chokers do bad in a certain in pressure situations, and this person did bad in a pressure situation, and therefore he is a choker." But that's mixing up the causal relation. Say, if you are that's why I use the logical terms. If you are a choker, then you will do bad in pressure situations. But it doesn't follow from that just because the mere fact that you did poorly in a pressure situation means that you're a choker, because it's not clear that the cause of you doing poorly in that final was because you choked or you felt the pressure of the moment or something like that. Here's one example, the one I just gave, where if your team wants you to play a certain way, then it's not clear that you choked if you didn't play super aggressively, or you might have but actually played worse if you had played aggressively because you would be disobeying your game plan. Or maybe you just got really unlucky, like that overpass game that Nico had. I just thought Nico got unlucky. I thought that he played fine. Like, I think he was good. And when he got opportunities where he wasn't unlucky, he played good in that on that CT side. So to me, I look at that. I'm like, yeah, his stats were bad, but did he play bad? Not really. Did he look like he felt the pressure? Was his aim off? No, it wasn't. So I see no actual causal reason to think that Nico choked in that final. Maybe
yeah,
he
and then he's
did.
making that really great hero play towards the end of Inferno too, when he was rushing down Banana, if I remember correctly. But Max, what do you think about Simple in this final? A lot of people noticed that Simple is sort of not impactful, right? Did you get a chance to look at this? Did you have thoughts on Simple in the finals, on NaVi in the finals? I mean, people were saying how boring it was, but I was watching that overpass game earlier. I mean, I think that first half was back and forth. There was some creek.
Yeah.
Like if Astralis don't win round 10 with those USP and the triple
USP
stack,
Eco, yeah.
That could have been a very different half.
Totally agree. And I think the broader like scoreline sort of shows, like, it doesn't show how close like a lot of the rounds were in terms of the theory behind a lot of it. In terms of NaVi actually had a pretty good game plan against Astralis, I thought. And I made a video about it where I highlighted this one round where they just completely read how much that Nyx likes to favor playing barrels. And they had a specific nade, specific molly, and then a specific angle to flush out Nyx, which results them in winning the round. But Astralis have read the fact that NaVi wanted to go B in the first place, so there's just 5 CTs there. So even though NaVi have this micro read on where Nyx likes to play, Astralis have completely read what NaVi wants to do within the round overall. And I think there was that really strange tension between NaVi conceptually playing well, but then having a lot of really sloppy moments where the executions of that plan didn't really come together. And yeah, this is just a classic thing where you just definitely need the comms to make some sweeping statements about the finals, because when there's that differential between how they would like to play and then how it actually happened in the server. Is that a choking thing? Is that the pressure of the moment? You know, we can only speculate. In terms of how Simple played, I can't really in my head think of anything that was absurd that he did. I think I remember one round where he pushed Con and missed an opening shot, but I can't think of any crazy.
Yeah, he doesn't stand out in memory when you think about it.
No, I can't.
He was
which
average.
maybe is a problem, right?
That is if you think of Simple, that might be considered a choke. And the fact that he didn't do some kind of crazy bullshit that's impossible.
Well, it's actually funny because I was actually watching. I thought there's a couple like sprays by Zeus and Edward was the very end of that overpass game where I'm like, that I don't know if they're just like so bad that they can have sprays that are that bad, but it just seemed like that seemed like nerfs to me. Actually, they actually didn't seem to be the people that were called out on social media after that game where Simple was. But yes, Stuchiu, I think you wrote something interesting. I'm not sure I remember everything you said, but you wrote how Astralis countered Simple. Did you guys short Stuchiu on this article on that?
Yeah, basically, I broke down like Astralis' game plan on Nuke, and it's pretty simple. It's like pretty standard stuff, I think. Basically, everything they do is like just clearing out the corners. Like it's not actually Simple specific for most of it. It was like, oh, this is just good against any opper, and it just happens like Nuke is a terrible map for most oppers. I don't know if Simple is necessarily an ascendant opper on the CT side of that map. Like I'd consider Device or KNES to be that, but I don't know.
Snacks was good.
Rest in peace, Snacks. Hope you have a better life.
Mouse sports seems so fixable, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but like the entire problem I saw with like the Astralis Simple thing was like everything they did like just didn't let Simple actually get the fight.
Yeah.
And if you, like that's actually the easiest way to defuse Simple. He can't hit if he's not there to hit people. Yeah. And that's basically what I saw. And the only reason I think it's an actual counter strat is because the times where Simple isn't playing out yard, like he's playing in ramp room, he's playing like secret, like that's when they do like the risky like yard take, where like they just jump out and then just take it instantly because they know like he's not there for some whatever fucking reason.
Whatever level they're operating, they just fucking know. Yeah.
I thought Simple played pretty good on Overpass. I thought that he found some openings towards the end, but I definitely think there's something to the idea that it's kind of like, let's say, choking by omission. Like there should have been more there, probably. And it's not like Simple was bad in other finals or other series against Astralis, was it? Like, but
no, he's pretty fucking good.
No, but I mean, like, noticeably worse. Here's the thing that bothers me about that, though, is that why is there more pressure in that series than in the MIBR series? Because, I mean, I'm not a pro player, okay? But if my expectations are, oh, I'm playing against the favorite right now, and the stakes aren't any higher than they are in the other match, because in both cases, this is a necessary condition for winning the trophy. So maybe the mere fact that it's so close, you know, it blinds you or something. But like the pressure's higher for NaVi against MIBR, because if they don't win that series, they're fucked. Everyone's gonna hate them, but no one hates them because they lost to Astralis. She's like, of course you lost to Astralis, you know. So I don't see why.
I mean,
I don't know, but
go ahead.
I don't see why it would be that like Simple feels no pressure and dominates MIBR, but then he just feels so much pressure. I think it's much more likely to be not a psychological thing, like related to the final, right? But much more something related to Astralis. That to me seems more plausible. The way that Astralis played, or something like that, something like conditioning, like play conditioning. Because I don't think that Simple has a history of being. Someone mentioned to me that he was bad at the ESL Cologne final in 2016.
Jesus Christ, in there.
Like, I mean, like, okay, but otherwise, I haven't noticed anything about Simple suggesting to me that he's bad in when the stakes are high or something like that. So I don't see why it would be in this specific instance. He just got like he saw the crowd and
it seems more narrative than something provable, right? But he was very quiet in that. I mean, it was a stomp, right? That what Liquid versus SK, or was it Luminosity back then? No, it was SK at that point.
It was SK.
Yeah, SK. At Cologne finals, and then he was also vague, sort of average to quiet per her standards at this final. So I think it's something to look at. It'll be something brought up when he reaches another major finals inevitably, but I don't think it's like going to be a huge blight on his career, and it's just going to be this stain, right? It's actually kind of crazy that NaVi have lost so many finals. Like, has Zeus been in? Yeah, is that crazy?
That's a very common theme in NaVi's history.
Yeah.
In fact, it's surprising that they've won as many tournaments as they have this year.
Guardian welcomed Flamey and Edward to the 3 club. 3 seconds in the major.
That's rough, dude. That's gonna fucking haunt you in terms of career. Like, if you do play Counter-Strike for 8 years and you only have so many chances and you lose 3 times, and the one major Zeus wins with Gambit of all teams, and that, like,
wow. I mean, maybe not for Edward and Zeus, because like Edward and Zeus were really successful. I know Zeus won a major, but even if he hadn't, like, they're really successful 1.6 players. No,
I mean, like, it's only really fucked for Guardian because he's like he was really fucking good in all 3.
To me, that's the one that is really depressing. Like, that's why I was hoping FaZe was going to win the tournament, because when I look at FaZe, it's the most, like, all 3 of Nico, Karrigan, and Guardian just really need a major. And at least for Guardian and Karrigan, it doesn't look like they're going to get one. And I can't cope with that.
Well, I mean, in Guardian's case, it's like, it's not his fault, like, no matter how you look at it.
No, it isn't.
All right, me and Sam have already had this argument, but let's end the show with this. Does Karrigan deserve a major? Is he overrated in game? We sort of had this fight last week. Max, do you think, like, that Karrigan has so much firepower throughout his career, and he had all these opportunities, and he sort of failed? You know, so you can get to a team to 0 to 60, but can't get 0 to 60 to 100. Or, I mean, is this sort of a pedantic argument that you've been interested in?
Oh, well, see, the scary thing is I want to, like, say the first thing that comes to my mind, but based on the fact that there's like a 30-minute discussion between you two, suggests that there's far more depth and complexity to this entire discussion.
No, it wasn't even that great of a discussion. We were sort of talking past each other. We welcome your insight to cut Gordon's knot right here and now.
Well, does any player like deserve to win a major that doesn't win a major? You know, like I think he
get good son. Yeah, so make the top front page of Reddit with all those pro player pictures.
I did say that. I did say like he doesn't deserve a major because no one who hasn't won a major doesn't deserve a major unless there's a crazy situation like maybe the Face Cloud9 where you legitimately made a play that had negative expected value and that won you the game even though it shouldn't have. Like so, except for that specific final, I don't think there's any final where you can look at someone and say, oh, or any series or any major. Like the Gambit one isn't one of these cases. Gambit deserved to beat Astralis.
Yeah, right? For sure.
So you can't look at Astralis and say, oh, well, they should have won that thing. But I mean in terms of the status that you... Well, wait.
I want to re-litigate this whole fucking 40-minute conversation
but like, when you talk about the status assigned to people who win majors, like, these players, like, let's say we can all agree for Guardian... Like Guardian has been such an amazing player in CSGO that it doesn't matter that he gets the same status that we assign to major winners.
Yeah,
even though
for sure.
He never won one.
And that's the classic thing is just like the amount of weight people put on winning a major in the first place.
That's what I mean.
Like that's
so when I say deserve, I mean the fact that he hasn't won a major doesn't mean he isn't as great as those who have. But
no, okay, I agree with that.
But like we can all agree with Guardian. Everyone agrees with that. Great Guardian. So you can agree with it in principle. I'm just saying that also applies to Karrigan. And Scott disagrees with that vehemently because he hates.
Why do you hate Karrigan?
I don't like Karrigan. I'm saying that he's a 0 to 60, not 60 to 100 guy.
No, he's like a 0 to 97 guy. Like, come on, that's very different. He's not MSL here. Come on, like
SL wins he turns shit into gold. He's pressure that molds people.
The Danish alchemist.
Karrigan has 3 of the best rosters of all time.
Yeah, and he won a major? Has he been able to win consistently? Yes. He won 2 tournaments with FaZe. How many tournaments did he win with TSM?
Okay, tell me, what the fuck was that Kyo Alu thing? If
we're just relitigating this whole discussion from last time. Stuchiu, final word. Do you think Karrigan deserves a major at some point?
Here's my question. Do you think Pronax deserves a major?
No.
Well, he has
nor does it exist.
Probably not 3, but maybe.
So
1.
There you go. If that's like the bar you're setting, if that's the bar you're setting, they have one. They deserved one. Therefore, Karrigan. I think Karrigan's a better in-game leader than both of them.
Pronax, yeah. There you go. Well, yeah. So but that's the thing. It's like I agree with you that Karrigan's probably not as good. I mean, we can never know, but he's probably not as good as Fallen, or especially not Glaive, who looks like by far the best in-game leader of all time, even though he's only been here for like 2 years. And a half.
Well, just think about in-game leaders in terms of value added. Gotta be huge value added.
So real quick, Scott, I think Stuchiu cornered you with that Pronax fallacy sort of like move right there. That was I saw that. I'm like, yes,
no. Okay,
good move, Stuchiu, good move.
Pronax doesn't have a lot of value. Like, okay, think about in-game leaders in terms of value added, or star players in terms of adding value to a roster. So people who add a lot of value.
Less value than Karrigan.
You think who adds more value than Karrigan?
I said Pronax exists add less value than Karrigan as an in-game to their rosters.
Well, especially Pronax, but even Pronax added some value because that team, when he left, was significantly worse. So, like, I know they won 6 tournaments in a row. And then they proceeded to do.
And then they did
when their star player fell off. Not when.
I'm not saying they had no value. I'm just saying they have less value than Karrigan.
Right? No. So I just want to say, like, let's not shit on Pronax too much.
Yeah. No. I'm not.
I exist
too far on that. You can go far on exist, but yeah, Pronax. Pronax is respectable.
If you look at Karrigan, he has so many rosters. Like, this is what I said to you. Like, if you say, oh, he has all these rosters that are amazing, and he does have 2 rosters at least that were very good, but.
Major caliber rosters, major winning caliber rosters.
Yes, but before like that Copenhagen Wolves team and Danatos team wasn't a major class team until he joined, and I don't think that's a coincidence. That FaZe team was dog shit until he joined, and he made a major caliber team out of a team that should have never been a major caliber team. People said that was a high firepower team. That team was dog shit in terms of firepower. Kyo and Alu are not like major caliber players in terms of firepower. So let's not pretend that they're nearly as close in firepower as the current phase is. But I think like you look at those two rosters alone and you're like, wow. And then you look at the roster that they have right now, and you still have to say it's pretty impressive that they did as well as they did, because you look at similar rosters like the Fallen roster that he's had since he's had Stewie 2K that are like almost exactly the same in terms of skill, even though I know that stylistically the teams are a bit different in their roster composition. But you look and you say, oh, well, it isn't just a given that that a skilled team is going to be very good. So you have to give them at least some credit for this phase team. And so now you have 3 rosters that were one of the best in the world or one of the best in the world at some points in time. That's really impressive.
I'll let it end. I'll let it die.
All right, I'll say this. Like, you have to ask yourself what you mean by effective value, because there in some ways, Karrigan is a better in-game leader than Glaive and Fallen.
Okay.
There are some specific ways he is a better in-game leader than both.
Here's how I think about it. Okay, there's a difference between making a roster work. I think Karrigan's really good at making a roster work. Okay, so like think of it like a missile launching. Like you gotta have the first super missiles that the first booster, right? He can get the team up to altitude. Like he can get the team into space, right? Can he get the team to the moon, right? I think there's a lot of guys. Sean Gares even like think of all these guys who have like or thought of as adding so much value to teams. Sean Gares got B Existence. MSL. Now some of these guys don't actually have that first part get to a team to a super high level, but they can add that second part to boost a team to achieve beyond like well beyond their means, right? They can like get a very high powered team to work, but they can't like, boost a lower tier teams to the next level. I think that's sort of a difference between like the people like Zeus and Karrigans of the world, where they can like make a star-studded team function, and like an MSL or Existence or Sean Gares or Gabi who can with tactics with himself as an individual really boost a team rather than just like making a team of stars just function. I think, and then in the rocket analogy, it's the stars that are actually just like. Is what he allows to fire. He's just like a coordinating unit. Where in the the rocket whole thing is all bullshit. Like, this is a mixed metaphor. It's not working at all. But it doesn't make any sense. But like I think that MSL is actually the driving force, or Sean Gares or Gabi is a driving force rather than Karrigan's just sort of holding it all together. That's my differentiation, and I'll try to let it die here.
Here's the hot take. Here's a hot take, okay?
Yeah.
Like that last Dignitas lineup with Cajun B, Magis, Config, Rubino, and MSL. Is that team significantly less skilled than Nico, Alu, Keo, Rain, and Karrigan?
At that time?
Is it? Because remember that Magis was one of the best players in the world at that time. So and so was Config.
I think Config hadn't fully kicked off into the high gear yet.
Config wasn't at his peak.
Yeah.
But he was pretty good. He was
a really good player still. So I look at and remember that Rain at that time, Rain only became a 1.20 player
after the Superstar King came.
So really, I think that they're very comparative rosters. Like Alu, if you look at Rubino and Keo, that's very close. If you look at Cajun B and Alu, Alu's better as an opera than Cajun B probably, but not much better. And then MSL and Karrigan. Maybe Karrigan's a little bit better, but that team, that phase team was way better than that Dignitas roster, like way better. So where's the value added that MSL brings? Maybe he develops the players, like you could say that. I guess it doesn't apply to Matches, but maybe to the other players like Config. But like otherwise, like Karrigan does. It's when you say he brings them to 0 to 60, like I just don't. I think he brings them to 0 to 97, and he's legitimately he just has problems in finals. But otherwise, or maybe he does. I mean, with FaZe definitely had a problem with finals. Karrigan maybe not.
I mean, here's the other thing about Karrigan's like. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but it's just if you look at Karrigan's actual finals record, it's like 50-50. It's not like you would think it's like 20-80 based on recency, but not so much. So I don't know. I just feel like I don't see why you would think MSL is a better in-game leader than Karrigan.
No, I'm saying they're different types.
Yeah, they are different types.
there's I think teams that in-game leaders that succeed in bringing that instilling a structure that's very specific that helps lower tier teams overperform, and there's a different structure that makes superstar teams work. And I think you have to give more credit to the superstar team, the former, because they are what's adding value to the team.
No, because I think that you have the Dignitas roster and that first phase roster are very comparative. And Karrigan had way more success with that roster than MSL has had with any roster. So why do you think that Karrigan brings less value?
We'll just let it die, because we're not. We can continue DMs on Twitter after this, and we'll just solve it. I think we've done this enough iterations. We can let it go. Max, do you have a final word? Happy to watch this play out a second time.
No mas. Okay.
I think this is interesting though, because it gets to the core of like when we're
why problem philosophically.
There is value in this because it does get down to the problems that we have in evaluating in-game leaders.
I mean, there is an aspect where basically ignoring the fact that he literally is very good at the social aspect, and that is a thing you have to consider it as an in-game leader. It's like getting people on your side, getting them to join your team. As to whether or not you think that's a plus EV value or not is debatable, because we can't know that. But that's certainly something that does correlate in Karrigan's career.
Right. All right. Good episode. Glad to have you back, Stuchiu. Glad we got to finish this one. Maybe not finish this one at the top speed, but glad we finished.
It's fine if it's long.